Israel is banning Chinese cars for security reasons, and China, Russia, and North Korea are running rehearsals for World War III. That and more on this week's China News Headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark. Whenever you go online, you really should be using a VPN like Surfshark to cover your tracks and protect your identity. I'll tell you more in a bit. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Russia and China are stepping up their military-industrial cooperation. And no, you didn't accidentally click on a rerun. This is happening again. I'd hold up a newspaper to show you the date if the newspaper industry wasn't on its dying gasp. But Zelensky said in a post on X, because that's apparently how news gets around these days, that Kiev's intelligence services noted just how dependent Russia's companies and state system have become on Chinese investments, technologies, and political priorities. And moral support, I assume. I bet they have a phone call every week where she calls Putin Daddy's big boy. Zelensky also called out Russia for allowing China to use resource-rich lands and selling rare resources to China, saying in his nightly address, "In Russian history, no one has ever surrendered sovereignty to such a great extent to China or any other stronger nation. It's astonishing how much Putin is paying simply to avoid ending the war." Basically, according to Zelensky, Russia is going from resource-rich to resource colony. Who would have thought this war was a bad idea? Besides all the people shouting, "This war is a bad idea!" Speaking of Chinese cooperation with Russia, both South Korea and Japan scrambled warplanes in response to a joint Russia and China air patrol. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff noted that 7 Chinese and 2 Russian warplanes entered the Korean Air Defense Identification Zone, which isn't the same as outright entering South Korea's airspace, but it's just one step removed. These warplanes remained for over an hour and flew as far as Tsushima in Japan, where the Japanese Air Force also scrambled jets, as the aircraft rendezvoused with still more planes and flew around Japan. Of course, both the CCP and Russia insisted this was just a joint military exercise. How harmless! Who cares that some of the planes near Japan were bombers? And one was Russia's early warning and control craft, the A-50. Also, coincidentally, this happened just around the same time that North Korea fired multiple artillery rockets into nearby waters. Isn't it nice to see the gang all back together again? And by nice, I mean terrifying. Given the stress of constantly wondering, oh, is this the start of World War III? I'm shocked everyone in the region isn't bald. But wait, there's more. Japan is protesting after a Chinese military jet locked its radar on Japanese aircraft, which I guess is the dogfighting equivalent of, "I'm not touching you," only instead of with hands, it's rockets. The CCP claims that Japan's self-defense force aircraft were severely obstructing their safe flight path, while Japan says that their aircraft were a safe distance from the Chinese aircraft, which they were following after the Chinese jets performed taking off and landing exercises on a carrier near Okinawa. The US and Japan did hold a joint air exercise right after this happened, in hopes that it will deter any more aggressive moves like this. I'm not holding my breath. China has executed a former banker for taking over $156 million, dollars, not yuan, in bribes. If only he could have bribed his way out of it. Bai Tianhui, the ex-general manager for China Huarong International Holdings, was sentenced back in May 2024. He allegedly took the money in exchange for offering favorable treatment when it came to acquiring and financing projects between 2014 and 2018. But apparently he's not the only one, because Huarong has been a target of Xi's anti-corruption campaign. Many other executives have been targeted, including former chairman Lai Xiaoming, who was executed 4 years ago on charges of taking $253 million in bribes. All of which is part of Xi Jinping's wider anti-corruption crackdown on the Chinese finance industry, because the Chinese economy is doing so well right now. The Israeli military is swerving away from Chinese cars, driven by worries about spies lurking in the auto technology. Puntastic news. Earlier this year, the IDF banned all Chinese-made vehicles from entering military bases over concerns that the vehicles could collect sensitive military information, which, duh, But they kept a program where the Israeli government leased cars to higher-ups in the military, and some of those cars were Chinese-made. That's being phased out. It's a good move. As one author and expert on state-sponsored espionage notes, with the IDF, you have known identities in the cars and every place those people have traveled. That's extremely useful intelligence. To know where top military officers are at any given time is gold for intelligence collection. On top of that, modern cars can do all sorts of crazy things like listen in on conversations. So really, the most shocking part of the story is that they ever use Chinese vehicles at all. And while we're on the topic of Israel, according to sources, Taiwan's deputy foreign minister recently made a secret trip there. Given that the trip was a secret, not a whole lot of details are available. And it seems the Israeli Foreign Ministry avoided being involved altogether so as not to anger China. But it's speculated that this is related to the island's quest to develop its own version of Israel's Iron Dome, called the T-Dome, which sounds more like a sports arena than a missile defense system. And did you know that every time you go online, everything you do is potentially compromised? That's why the people at Surfshark created a VPN that keeps your internet activity private and secure. You may have noticed that phishing scams are on the rise. Scammers send 3.4 billion phishing attacks every single day, trying to convince you to sign in somewhere and enter your password. A lot of these emails look legit. That's why Surfshark created the Email Scam Checker. With one click, you can check to see if an email is probably a phishing attack. This could help save yourself from having your identity and your hard-earned money stolen by scammers. You'll also get the Web Content Blocker, which allows you to block adult sites, drugs, gambling, and other harmful content on every device in your home. It lets you block the bad stuff without actually having to monitor what your family members are browsing. I've been using Surfshark for a long time, and it just keeps getting better. A lot of other VPNs just hide your internet activity. Surfshark does that too, and very well, and it also goes the extra mile with add-ons that keep you and your family safe from all the malicious things that come through the internet. Plus, Surfshark has servers you can connect to in more than 100 countries, more than any other VPN. So stay safe and get Surfshark. Go to surfshark.com/uncensored and use the code uncensored to get up to 4 months extra. The link is in the description below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.